Noha and her two friends had finally reached a particularly dense section of the forest where the canopy above blocked almost all sunlight, leaving the ground in deep, eerie shadows. Their torn clothes hung loosely on their exhausted bodies, dirt and sweat streaking their skin, and the weight of fatigue pressed heavily on all three of them, yet the animals that had accompanied them moved gracefully around, sensing the tension and offering quiet companionship. As they moved carefully, Noha found a small clearing where they could set up a temporary camp, and together they pitched a sturdy tent using the remnants of fabric, ropes, and poles they had carried, arranging it so that it could shield them from the heavy branches and the occasional sharp rain droplets that trickled through the leaves above. Inside, they laid out their sleeping mats and sat quietly, feeling the tense atmosphere of the forest pressing against their temporary shelter, while outside the darkness seemed alive with movement, the rustle of leaves hinting at snakes or other small creatures that slithered too close for comfort. As night fell, Noha settled inside the tent, trying to sleep, but the shadows and occasional faint noises kept him alert, and he soon woke when a subtle movement caught his eye, only to see nothing upon closer inspection, so he lay back down, tense but determined to rest. Meanwhile, his two friends sensed something outside, their instincts sharpened by exhaustion and the eeriness of the forest. They nudged Noha awake, and the three of them cautiously stepped outside, the moonlight barely filtering through the dense canopy, revealing a slithering snake with striking patterns on its scales that hissed as it moved, forcing them to step back carefully, maneuvering through the underbrush while keeping their balance on uneven ground and avoiding the thick roots and thorny bushes that clawed at their legs. After narrowly escaping the snake, they continued further into the forest, deeper into the unknown, feeling both nervous and exhilarated as they traversed the dense undergrowth, the sounds of nocturnal animals echoing around them, the cool night air carrying the scent of damp earth and leaves. Eventually, they stumbled upon a massive tree with gnarled roots and a hollow cavity underneath, which seemed like a natural shelter. Deciding it was safer than the open ground, they carefully carried their minimal belongings inside, arranging their sleeping mats in the hollow and trying to make themselves comfortable, the walls of the tree closing in around them, creating a strange sense of security amidst the overwhelming darkness. That night passed slowly, each rustle and shadow making them tense, but the small group managed to get some rest, while their tracking gear and supplies lay scattered around the hollow, ready for the morning. At first light, the three friends emerged, their bodies stiff and sore, and after a brief stretch and some cautious movement, they used ropes and vines to climb back to a higher section of the forest floor, making their way slowly but steadily toward the previous campsite where they had set up their tent. Every step was careful, as the ground was uneven, and hidden roots threatened to trip them, yet the thrill of discovery and the desire to survive pushed them onward. Once they reached the tent location, they organized their belongings and packed carefully, making sure nothing was left behind, securing ropes, tents, and mats before moving toward a strange, enormous tree they had noticed earlier, which seemed to shimmer slightly in the sunlight filtering through the dense canopy, promising mystery and perhaps food or shelter. As they approached the tree, the entrance revealed something extraordinary. A massive squirrel colony had built an elaborate home inside the tree trunk, with numerous compartments, small furniture-like structures made from twigs and leaves, and vivid, colorful decorations that reflected the industrious life of the squirrels. Some of the squirrels were preparing meals, arranging nuts and fruits in organized piles, while others curiously observed the newcomers, chattering excitedly and moving quickly around their tree home. Noha and his friends were astonished by the sight, watching the squirrels work with precision, interacting among themselves, and somehow even preparing small servings of food as if in anticipation of their arrival, welcoming the group silently but kindly. The trio could not help but marvel at the sheer organization and energy of the squirrels, whose vibrant tiny home seemed almost magical, every corner filled with color and movement, the sunlight streaming through gaps in the foliage highlighting their meticulous craftsmanship. After a moment of observation, the group decided to rest nearby, quietly absorbing the lively scene, noting down every detail in their journals, capturing it in sketches, and whispering excitedly about what they were witnessing. realizing that this forest held wonders far beyond their imagination and that survival here would be a delicate balance of careful observation, respect for wildlife, and collaborative effort among themselves. They prepared to stay for a while, learning the rhythms of the squirrels, noting their food storage patterns, and understanding how the animals had adapted to the forest's challenges, all while managing their own exhaustion, hunger, and the constant pressure of navigating an unforgiving jungle environment, aware that each new discovery could be a key to their survival and a lesson in the untamed natural world around them. Noha, along with her two friends, stepped cautiously out of the giant tree hollow where they had spent a tense night, the early morning sunlight filtering weakly through the dense Amazon canopy, casting long, eerie shadows over the moss-covered ground and tangled roots. Their bodies were sore and tired from the previous day's struggles, their torn clothes clinging uncomfortably, and yet their determination to explore deeper into the jungle gave them a renewed sense of purpose. As they carefully made their way through the thick undergrowth, their senses alert to every sound, rustle, and movement, they noticed that the forest seemed almost alive, with birds chirping in the high branches, insects buzzing around them, and the distant roar of a river echoing through the trees. Noha led the way, consulting her notes and the book she had meticulously kept since the crash, pointing out rare plants, marking the locations of useful herbs, and reminding her friends to watch for hidden dangers like venomous snakes and aggressive insects. Occasionally, they stumbled upon strange tracks, some resembling large cats, others unidentifiable, that made them quicken their pace and huddle together for safety, communicating silently with hand signals they had developed during their earlier survival experiences. The friends were amazed at how intuitive Noha had become, guiding them with careful precision, yet they felt a strange exhilaration as they ventured further into unknown territory, their hearts pounding with excitement and fear. Along the way, they encountered a small waterfall cascading into a clear, shallow pool, its water sparkling in the sunlight, and they eagerly approached it to drink and wash their tired faces, laughing quietly at the relief it brought. Noha instructed them to collect water in their canteens, noting the plant life around to avoid any poisonous varieties, while her friends marveled at the jungle's lush vibrancy, capturing photographs and short video clips on their handheld devices to document the journey. They moved carefully, stepping over thick roots and fallen branches, until they reached a narrow, winding path that seemed to lead to an elevated plateau, where the canopy opened slightly, giving a glimpse of the sky above and the sprawling jungle below. Here, Noha paused, pulling out a small map and her compass, discussing with her friends the best route to continue without getting lost, emphasizing the importance of maintaining their bearings and conserving energy. As they continued, the jungle grew even denser, with enormous ferns and towering trees that blocked almost all sunlight, creating a twilight effect that made the forest feel mysterious and slightly menacing. Suddenly, a series of chirps and rustles caught their attention. A group of colorful parrots swooped from branch to branch, startling them momentarily, but Noha gently motioned for them to remain calm, explaining that these creatures were harmless and could even serve as natural guides in recognizing safe paths. The friends followed closely, taking careful notes and photographing the birds as they flew overhead, while Noha occasionally paused to sketch the formations of plants and trees that could serve as future reference points. Hours passed, and they arrived at a small clearing where they discovered a fallen tree trunk forming a natural bridge over a narrow stream. Carefully, they crossed it, feeling the cool mist rising from the water and the slippery moss beneath their feet. Suddenly, a rustling in the underbrush revealed a pair of curious monkeys. Observing them with intelligent eyes, Noha smiled, softly speaking to them, and to her amazement, the monkeys began to move alongside them, guiding them toward a cluster of fruit-bearing trees. The friends cautiously picked some ripe fruits, washing them in the stream, and shared them as a quick snack, feeling a renewed sense of energy and connection to the jungle around them. As the afternoon sun began to wane, they stumbled upon a hidden valley surrounded by towering cliffs, where a small herd of deer grazed quietly. Noha motioned for her friends to remain still, observing them from a safe distance, and they marveled at the serenity of the scene, taking careful notes and capturing the moment on their cameras. As dusk approached, the forest darkened rapidly, and they knew they needed a safe place to rest. Noha spotted a hollowed-out area beneath a massive banyan tree, its roots creating natural walls that could shield them from predators, and they quickly set up their small temporary camp, using tarps and their limited gear to create a secure sleeping area. That night, as they lay quietly listening to the symphony of the jungle, the distant howls of nocturnal animals, the rustle of leaves, the occasional splash of a creature in the stream, they reflected on the day's discoveries and challenges, sharing whispered stories and laughter to keep their spirits up. Noha carefully inspected their supplies, making notes on what they would need for the following day, while her friends cleaned and bandaged minor scratches and scrapes, maintaining hygiene as best as possible in the wilderness. The bond between them strengthened with every shared challenge, and the jungle, once intimidating, now felt like a living classroom, teaching them resilience, awareness, and teamwork. As sleep finally overcame them, Noha silently promised herself that tomorrow would bring new discoveries and that every step they took deeper into the Amazon was a step toward understanding the mysteries it held, her mind alive with strategies, observations, and the quiet thrill of adventure. As the first light of dawn trickled through the dense canopy of the Amazon jungle, Noha and her two friends slowly emerged from their makeshift campsite, muscles sore from the previous day's grueling trek, clothes tattered and stained with mud, and backpacks heavy with the few supplies they managed to carry. The forest seemed alive around them, every rustle of leaves, every distant bird call amplifying the sense of mystery and uncharted danger that hung thickly in the air. Noha led the way, consulting the notebook she had carefully kept, cross-referencing locations of edible plants and water sources with what she observed in front of her. Each step was measured, as hidden roots and slippery moss threatened to trip them, yet the friends pushed forward, driven by curiosity and a shared determination to discover the deeper parts of the jungle. As they moved, the undergrowth occasionally parted to reveal small clearings, where wild orchids bloomed in vibrant shades of purple, yellow, and red, their colors startlingly vivid against the muted green of the forest floor. They spotted a family of capuchin monkeys swinging nimbly from branch to branch above them, pausing occasionally to glance at the intruders below, chattering in a language the trio could only imagine. The friends stopped briefly by a narrow stream, its water so clear that the sunlight penetrated to the pebbly bed below, creating tiny prisms of color that danced on the rippling surface. They drank cautiously, cupping water in their hands, feeling the cool liquid rejuvenate their tired bodies. The jungle canopy occasionally opened up to patches of sky where colorful macaws glided gracefully, their wings a dazzling array of red, blue, and yellow. Every step deeper brought new wonders. They discovered a massive termite mound, intricately structured, and a colony of leafcutter ants marching in perfect lines, each carrying fragments of greenery much larger than their tiny bodies. Noha's friends were constantly amazed, documenting everything with their small cameras, pausing to photograph the intricate beauty of flowers, the glimmer of insects' wings, and the mysterious tracks of animals they could only guess at. The air was thick with humidity, carrying the scent of wet earth and flowering plants, and occasionally the faint, musky smell of wild animals passing unseen nearby. By midday, hunger gnawed at them, and they paused beneath a giant saber tree, its massive roots creating natural seats, to eat the rations they had carried, tearing into dried fruits and nuts while sharing bits among themselves. Noha carefully noted the edible species they found along the way, cross-referencing them with her earlier observations to ensure safety, all the while keeping a keen eye on their surroundings for any signs of danger. They encountered a small, hidden grove where several brightly colored toucans were feeding on fruits, their large beaks strikingly exaggerated yet somehow elegant, and the friends marveled, whispering to avoid startling them. Moving further, they stumbled upon a narrow ravine, a natural trench carved by water over centuries, filled with ferns and small flowering plants clinging to the steep walls. Noha carefully guided her friends down the slope using ropes and branches, demonstrating the survival techniques she had been researching meticulously. At the bottom, they discovered a crystal-clear pool, reflecting the canopy above like a mirror, and they paused to wash their faces and refresh themselves, the cool water seeping into their skin and easing the soreness of their muscles. The journey continued, filled with small discoveries that made them both cautious and exhilarated: tracks of jaguars, broken branches hinting at monkeys leaping above, and the distant howl of howler monkeys, echoing ominously through the forest. As afternoon turned to evening, the canopy thickened further, and shadows deepened, creating a natural twilight even as the sun still shone above. Noha decided it was time to set up a temporary camp, using the roots of an enormous tree to secure a top and creating a small fire pit, careful to avoid attracting unwanted attention from predators. As night fell, they huddled together for warmth, the fire flickering and casting long shadows on the surrounding foliage, their faces illuminated with a soft orange glow, eyes wide with wonder and slight apprehension. Crickets and other nocturnal insects provided a continuous soundtrack, while distant calls of nocturnal mammals reminded them of the unseen creatures all around. Noha reviewed her notes, whispering instructions to her friends about what to observe and how to document everything meticulously, emphasizing safety and patience. The night stretched on, with occasional rustlings outside the top, perhaps harmless animals or perhaps predators, keeping their senses heightened and alert. Exhausted but inspired, they finally drifted to a light sleep, knowing that the next day would bring further exploration, unexpected discoveries, and another chapter in their extraordinary journey through the Amazon jungle. Noha, along with her two friends, had ventured deeper into the Amazon, their bodies sore and fatigued, clothes torn from the dense underbrush, yet their determination unwavering. After their previous night in the tree shelter, they woke to the humid morning air, heavy with the scent of wet earth and decaying leaves, the distant calls of howler monkeys echoing like nature's alarm clock. They carefully packed their tracking equipment, backpacks weighed down with supplies, and began moving again toward the next point on their map, where Noha had noticed a peculiar cluster of massive trees marked in her notes. The forest floor was a mosaic of mud, fallen leaves, and tangled roots that threatened to trip them with every step, forcing them to navigate slowly. Every now and then, they paused to photograph and record the vibrant life around them: darting lizards, colorful insects, and exotic flowers that seemed to glow against the dark green of the forest. A glimmer of excitement ran through the group as they approached a clearing, revealing a towering ancient tree with roots sprawling like a natural fortress. This tree, Noha noted, was rumored to house a complex system of tunnels and hollows, possibly home to small creatures yet unseen. The friends cautiously approached, aware of snakes or other predators that might be lurking beneath the foliage. As they circled the base of the tree, they discovered a narrow opening just big enough for one person to squeeze through. Noha volunteered first, her experience guiding them, while the others followed slowly, crawling through the moist, earthy tunnel. Inside, they found a breathtaking network of chambers, some filled with intricate nests woven from leaves and twigs, others adorned with bioluminescent fungi casting an ethereal blue glow. It was like stepping into a secret underground city, untouched by humans, alive with subtle sounds of tiny creatures scuttling and whispering. The friends moved silently, careful not to disturb the fragile ecosystem, their flashlights sweeping across tunnels lined with roots and vines. In one chamber, they found a gathering of small mammals, similar to squirrels but with iridescent fur that shimmered under their lights. The creatures observed them curiously but did not flee, a sign of their trust or indifference to human presence. Noha quietly reached into her pack and pulled out some dried fruits, placing them gently on the ground. The creatures approached, nibbling cautiously, and the group watched in awe as nature unfolded before their eyes. Hours passed, and the explorers mapped the tunnels, documenting their shapes, intersections, and the life forms inhabiting each chamber. They took care to leave markers to avoid getting lost, a careful breadcrumb trail of chalk and string, while discussing theories about why these animals had developed such a safe and hidden habitat in the depths of the jungle. Emerging back into the humid daylight, they paused to rest and eat a small meal of jerky and nuts, sharing stories of the most extraordinary things they had seen so far. Suddenly, the forest became alive with a different sound, a low, rhythmic growl, distant but growing louder. Noha's heart raced. They had encountered predators before, but this was different, a warning that the jungle still held secrets they weren't fully prepared for. Following the sound cautiously, they discovered a narrow stream, water clear and cold, providing a much-needed refreshment for their exhausted bodies. Washing their faces and hands, Noha noticed that the water also had a cleansing effect on their wounds, slightly easing the bruises and scratches from the day. They used strips of their clothing to cover minor cuts, careful to avoid infection in the humid environment. The friends continued along the stream, moving upstream, discovering small waterfalls, moss-covered rocks, and patches of bright flowers clinging to steep banks. Birds of brilliant colors darted overhead, and occasionally, a distant roar of a jaguar echoed, reminding them of the constant dangers. Yet their excitement overshadowed fear. Every turn in the path revealed something new, a rare sight, a strange plant, or a creature behaving in ways they had never imagined. Towards the evening, they found a natural clearing surrounded by ancient trees forming a canopy that filtered the last light of the sun, painting the forest floor in golden hues. They set up a temporary camp, arranging sleeping mats and tarps, while Noha and her friends took turns gathering firewood, aware that this small flame was their only comfort and protection for the night. As darkness fell, they lit a small fire, the warm light contrasting with the deep shadows of the jungle. Noha observed the creatures nearby, small, luminous insects hovering like tiny stars, and the iridescent squirrels returning to the clearing, accepting the light but not fearing it. Their previous nervousness had transformed into a profound respect and awe for the jungle's hidden life. That night, as they lay close to the fire, sharing food and talking softly, Noha contemplated their journey, the peril, the discovery, and the camaraderie forged under the canopy of one of the planet's most untamed forests. The forest symphony, the calls of nocturnal birds, the rustle of leaves from unseen animals, the distant roar of predators, lulled them into a sleep filled with dreams of hidden wonders yet to uncover. Every decision, every cautious step, had brought them closer not only to understanding the jungle but also to strengthening the bond between them, a bond forged in the heart of the Amazon, amidst its shadows, secrets, and radiant life. The first light of dawn broke gently through the dense canopy of the Amazon, casting long, golden streaks across the forest floor and illuminating the thick, dew-covered leaves that seemed to shimmer with life. Noha and her two friends, still exhausted from the previous night's trek and their encounters with the wild, slowly rose from their makeshift shelter beneath the massive, ancient tree, the hollow of which had provided temporary protection from predators and the pouring rain. Their clothes, torn and muddied from days of navigating through dense undergrowth, clung to their bodies as they adjusted their worn backpacks, checking their limited supplies of food and water, the few remaining rations that had to last them through the upcoming days of exploration. As they emerged, the forest greeted them with a symphony of sounds, birds chirping melodically, insects buzzing in rhythmic patterns, and the distant roar of some unseen animal that reminded them constantly of the jungle's raw power and unpredictability. Their first task was to carefully pack up the campsite, ensuring that nothing essential was left behind, every rope, torp, and medical kit accounted for, all while keeping a vigilant eye for any movement in the shadows that might signify danger. The massive tree above them seemed to watch silently, its thick, gnarled branches stretching high into the sky, creating an almost cathedral-like canopy where patches of sunlight filtered through, illuminating moss-covered roots and tiny, colorful plants that thrived in the humid undergrowth. As they moved through the thick ferns and shrubs, the three explorers carefully navigated the uneven terrain, stepping over fallen logs and avoiding pools of stagnant water where snakes or other dangerous creatures might lurk, their eyes scanning constantly for any signs of movement. After hours of careful trekking, the group reached a part of the forest that opened into a small clearing, the ground carpeted with soft moss and dotted with wildflowers of vibrant reds, purples, and yellows, contrasting sharply with the deep greens of the surrounding foliage. Here, Noha noticed something extraordinary: a series of massive roots intertwined in such a way that they created a natural archway leading into what appeared to be another hollowed section of the tree, forming a hidden chamber deep within the trunk. Intrigued, they approached cautiously, noting the faint glow of bioluminescent fungi growing along the inner walls, casting a soft, ethereal light that illuminated small creatures scurrying across the floor, their eyes reflecting the light like tiny gemstones. The explorers carefully entered the hollow, moving slowly to avoid disturbing the wildlife, and were amazed to find a miniature ecosystem thriving inside, complete with tiny streams, vibrant plants, and small animals going about their activities as if oblivious to the human presence. Noha, remembering the notes she had meticulously taken in her book, compared each observation to what she had predicted, feeling a deep satisfaction that the forest was exactly as she had studied, yet more alive, more chaotic, and more beautiful than any textbook could ever capture. Her friends marveled at the sheer richness of life surrounding them, the intricacies of each plant, the behaviors of the insects, the playful interactions of small mammals, and despite their fatigue, their excitement grew, their nervous tension replaced by awe and curiosity. As they explored deeper, they encountered a small stream cutting through the hollow, water crystal clear and cold, reflecting the faint light of the fungi. They knelt down to drink, replenishing their energy and washing dirt and sweat from their faces, the cool water bringing a sense of relief and refreshment. Noha took a moment to examine her map and compass, plotting a route to ensure they did not get lost in the labyrinthine forest, while her friends gathered samples of plants and noted signs of animal activity, documenting everything with their cameras. Suddenly, a faint rustling caught their attention from above, and they looked up to see a group of small, colorful monkeys swinging gracefully from branch to branch, their movements fluid and almost choreographed, their eyes curious but unthreatening. The explorers held their breath, captivated by the scene, and even managed to take a few photographs without startling the animals. Moving onward, they discovered a hidden alcove in the tree, filled with fallen fruits, some partially eaten by the local fauna, which they carefully examined and tasted, finding them surprisingly edible and providing a small but welcome addition to their meager supplies. Exhaustion began to set in once more as the hours passed, and they decided to find a more secure area to set up camp for the night. Noha spotted a cluster of smaller trees whose intertwined roots created a natural platform above the forest floor, providing a safer place to rest away from potential predators. They set up their tents, securing them with ropes and tarps, and gathered nearby twigs and branches to start a small fire, careful to maintain it at a manageable size that would provide warmth and light without attracting unwanted attention. As night fell, the jungle transformed, the darkness punctuated by glowing insects and the distant calls of nocturnal animals. The explorers sat together around the flickering fire, eating what little food remained, tending to small wounds with the medical supplies they had brought, and sharing observations and reflections on the day's discoveries. Noha felt a sense of accomplishment and anticipation for what lay ahead, confident that despite the challenges and dangers, this expedition would yield experiences and knowledge far beyond what she had imagined. The night was long, filled with both quiet contemplation and moments of alertness as they listened to the subtle sounds of the jungle, aware of the constant presence of life surrounding them, both beautiful and potentially perilous. As they finally drifted into sleep, the fire casting soft shadows on the trees around them, Noha couldn't help but feel that this was only the beginning of an even greater journey, one that would test their courage, intelligence, and teamwork, but also reward them with unparalleled discoveries in the heart of the Amazon.